Excellent. Thank you, everyone who is joining us for this webinar. It's great to have people signing up and joining and yeah, going to learn about TikTok today. So that's wonderful. If people want to locate that chat button at the bottom of their Zoom window and perhaps say where they're from, maybe a little bit about their business, great to know who's here. Always draw good examples. We've also got the Q&A there, which we'll be monitoring throughout the presentation today. So feel free, definitely. If you've got something that you're really keen to ask, want to find out an answer to, we'll more closely monitor those questions there. So make sure you add them to the Q&A tab. Also, definitely great just to see people from Edmonton. We've got Deborah, who's an HR consultant. We've got Calgary and someone, a plumbing and HVAC from Calgary. So a real range of businesses there for sure. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Matt Hill, Director of Client Service and Operations here at BusinessLink, and start with our land acknowledgement today before introducing Megan and Ryan. BusinessLink acknowledges and respects that we're on traditional land, meeting grounds, territories, gathering places, and traveling routes of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, and the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the lands of those who have come before us, reside here now and in the future. So absolutely thank you and welcome to everyone joining us today. And thank you so much for signing up for this webinar. So TikTok, Ryan and Megan from 910 Marketing are going to kind of take it from here. But like I say, if you have any questions at all or want to engage in a chat there, make sure you do that. Thanks so much for Ryan and Megan for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Matt, and Julian in the background, and lots of the BusinessLink team members are sort of in the trenches making all of this churn. Organization does a great job of supporting small, medium businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs in our province. So we're really excited to be a part of this partnership where we bring forward digital marketing skills and education targeted exactly at this bunch, small, medium businesses, entrepreneurs, etc. So today's session is one where we're going to dive into TikTok, and this is a part of our Digital Marketing Training Academy. There's lots of topics we cover in there, and if you've been a part of this series, you know that we think some things should be done in order, and so for us, brand is very much foundational. And then we cover a lot about websites and email marketing and search engine optimization, social media, and once you get into social media, there's a lot of niches, isn't there? There's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and everyone's been talking about TikTok. And one of the things I like to flag at the beginning is not every platform, not every tactic, not every strategy is appropriate for every business at every scale. Sometimes you're going to be resource constrained. Sometimes you're not going to have the right type of content opportunities. So TikTok is a good example where it's one of the platforms that 910 doesn't actively participate in, but we do have some clients using it. And so today we'll talk a little bit about TikTok and how it is similar and how it's different to other platforms. And Megan, our confident, trusted certified digital marketing professional. That's the certification you get if you go through our training program. She's going to be leading us through that. So before we do that, I'll just give a quick overview of our team. So we are in Grande Prairie, Alberta. That's in Treaty 8. And this is our team. We're small and nimble, but we're also modern. And in fact, Megan works off the grid near Edmonton. So power of Starlink. And so at our agency, our mission is really to help small, medium businesses embrace their brand, their digital marketing presence, their web presence, all of that. And really what we're trying to do is to give you the skill sets, the confidence, the tools, and the tactics to be able to manage a lot of your digital marketing in-house. And so if you fast forward that, our vision is that in Alberta, if you're a small, medium business, if you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, you have access to the tools, the skill set, and the training such that you can participate and you can, do best practice digital marketing with your own resources or your in-house resources if it's your staff. So that's sort of our vision. This is the reason why we're partnered with BusinessLink. We also do lots of work with Community Futures and Alberta Chambers of Commerce. Wherever there's small, medium businesses hanging around, that's where we want to be. And when we talk about the services that our agency offers, we're in Grande Prairie, but we serve all of Alberta and even into Western Canada a good amount. And we have different divisions. And so we do a lot of branding work. That's our foundational item. We also do graphic design. We do print. Websites is a big part of what we do. That's the center of your online presence. And you'll hear Megan talk a little bit about that later. And then SEO, search engine optimization, maybe the first buzzword in there. This is all of the things that you need to do on your website in your online presence such that you show up in Google when someone is searching for you by keywords. And so that gets a little bit technical. We cover that in droves in our training academy. And of course, you see our training academy is at the end. So it's kind of this idea that we help you with your brand foundation. We make sure you're well established online. We help you to design any of your marketing or sales collateral. And then we buttress that with the training so that you can then plug into your online presence framework, your foundation, and then you're in the driver's seat and you have the confidence and the tools to move forward. And if TikTok is one of the platforms that you're looking to engage with, you'll have all of the theory and all of the practical knowledge how to adopt or adapt rather to TikTok, slightly different than how you might be doing things on Facebook or LinkedIn. So with that, let me introduce Megan Jobson. She leads our training academy. She is a certified digital marketing professional, and you could be one too. So with that, Megan, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan, so much for that warm introduction. I just, before we get too far into it, I want to get a little bit of a temperature check. TikTok can be a little bit of a controversial platform initially. People have a lot of very different ideas about TikTok, about what it is and how effective it is, and should we even be using it in marketing. So I just want to understand a little bit. What do you think about TikTok? What were your first impressions? Do you have any thoughts, or are you here to learn more? Are you here because you are a TikToker? If you want to just drop it in the chat here, I'd love to kind of get a sense of where everyone's at. And maybe Ryan and Matt, I'll just ask you to first, what were your first initial thoughts about TikTok?
Matt, I'm curious to hear yours first, and then I'll let you lead.
Yeah, I can start from a kind of business link perspective. So when when TikTok first felt like it was coming to prominence, we definitely felt like, oh, we should be on TikTok, we should be on TikTok. And I think actually we even started and did a couple of videos and things like that. But we didn't continue for whatever reason. And then from kind of my perspective, like I definitely feel a little older for it. Like it's definitely not my go-to. Although I was out for lunch yesterday with people who were older than me, and then everyone said just how addictive it was, and how much time it is easy for an hour to pass by very quickly when I'm on there.
Yeah, my first impressions were a little bit, oh wow, another platform to learn and to try to take advantage of as an organization. And I immediately thought that for many organizations, they can't adopt or adapt to all of these platforms. They have to pick and choose. Rewind a couple of years ago, Pinterest was all the craze, and maybe Foursquare for check-ins if you're in retail or this and that. So I think it's really important for businesses to first just think about who their target audience is and what their content strategy ideally would be, and then look to each platform to see if it would be a good fit. And then, like anything else, there's a learning curve, and you have to allocate the time, and you have to make sure that you have the right team member in place to capture and create that content. But ultimately, it's clearly viable for many businesses. There's a whole bunch going on now with whether or not TikTok will be banned in the US and what that will mean for Canada. And so I would say of the platforms, it's uniquely situated in this sort of purgatory of unknown information, what's going to happen. So I would be a little bit cautious to double down really solely in TikTok at this point, as opposed to others platforms, picking this over that, given that there's still a lot of unknown information with what's going to happen with TikTok in North America, at least. So
I also, Ryan, I feel like there's maybe a slight inbuilt advantage to smaller businesses with TikTok, and I could be kind of very wrong here. Of like, it feels like for content to be successful, there has to be kind of an authenticity to it, and a very it's kind of very human to human, isn't it? Lots of videos are me speaking directly to camera, and in a way that maybe a very, very large corporate multinational kind of struggles with that. I
Yeah.
see that as, potential for small businesses. They're run by real people in real communities, maybe.
Well, Matt, and that it's almost as though that raw authenticity of this content is in the moment. It's ephemeral to a certain degree.
Mm.
It's more accessible for businesses to create without having a professional designer or videographer on staff. It still takes time. You still need to put the time and the resources. You still need to learn how the tool and how the platform works. But Megan, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and then see where you go with this.
100%. And a lot of really good points that are being brought up in the chat as well. I'm seeing a few kind of common themes throughout the chat is don't really know a lot about it, security concerns, and that they've just never used it. A few kind of misconceptions about TikTok are that it collects more data than other platforms because of how hyper-specific its algorithm is. That's actually a myth. It doesn't create any, or it doesn't collect any more data than Facebook does, for example. That is some misinformation. However, the algorithm itself is built a little bit differently than some of the other platforms. So it does feel more hyper-specific, which can be a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if you aren't familiar with a lot of the way that social media works in how they push content. So that can be a little overwhelming, a little scary. But if I can assuage any of those concerns, it's not taking any more of your data than what Facebook is, what Twitter is, what Instagram is. And a few questions about, is it actually a viable platform to use for business? And that's exactly the whole concept of today. One of the things that we'll talk about is the fact that TikTok really is kind of just the buzzword, right? We'll talk about TikTok as a platform itself, but really most of the things that we're going to be talking about is short form video, really, because it expands a lot beyond what is just on the platform itself. But one thing that I really liked that Matt said is about how authentic and genuine TikTok content in particular seems to be, and that is very much the trend, and where marketing in general is going is much more human to human and less about the billboard ads, because of how we have interacted through short form video for a number of years now. So thank you so much for the conversation here. First things first, the short and sweet of short form video. What is it? Really, it is obviously a short video that focuses on one main topic. The idea is that we don't get too complex, we don't get too broad in general, that there is one particular conversation point without getting too convoluted, right? So the short form video, one of the reasons why it's taken off is because of that, where it's so hyper focused, right? It's just one conversation point. We can have discussions around that without broadening our scope too much. But like I said, TikTok really is more of a buzzword. It actually, short form video started around, and it's been around for a long time, but it took off with Vine in 2013. I don't know if any of you know or remember Vine. It came out, it was a Twitter application actually, but it came out in 2013, and then by 2016, they took it off of the App Store. I'm not sure what the decision was. It was very, very popular, but it really kickstarted this whole idea of short form video and its connection to virality and how quickly ideas and pop culture can spread through video. So that is really kind of the fundamental where it started, but it really expands beyond TikTok to Reels and stories on your Facebook and Instagram. And now even YouTube has brought in YouTube Shorts, which is not necessarily as quickly growing as some of the other platforms, but it just goes to show how foundational that this trend has become with being on so many different, very established platforms now, because of Vine and TikTok and other
One
platforms.
thing to add into that as well, some other factors that are sort of all coming together at once is broadband speed and connection to 5G, and the ability for mobile phones to do live video and to just, stream content much easier. And then also the phones, the hardware is much more powerful for the ability to do additional processing on camera before you go live. So this is anything from filters to decals and stickers and transitions, of which there's lots in TikTok. So it's kind of this perfect storm of all of these things coming together and then ultimately being matched with creativity of humans and marketers in this new format. To your point, Megan, it's been around for a while, but the tools and the platforms are making it much easier to really create this content in really unique and creative ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So why has short form video taken off? Why has TikTok become the fastest growing platform ever? And one of the reasons is what Matt alluded to earlier, is the addiction. Scientifically, when we're scrolling through videos, we get a little hit of dopamine every time a new video comes through. And that builds a lot of chemical pathways in our brain. And so scientifically, there is a reason why it has become so prominent, but also it really has kind of reinvented social communication in a way. Rather than your MSN or your Facebook being a photo and some text, it is completely diversified our media and the way we converse online. It has built social community in a way that no other platform has been able to do. And honestly, more than anything, it's just fun. It's fun, it's engaging, and it builds this parasocial relationship that we haven't seen on other platforms before, where we can have relationships, very real relationships, with people through these videos without actually ever having an in-person relationship with them. And it has completely changed the scape on a scale that we haven't seen before. There are definitely other platforms that do similar things, like Twitch, for example, but it is completely different in how it's publicized that and made it so much more accessible for the general public. So
Before we move on, I just dropped a question in there, and it's slightly tied and relevant to our conversation. So that's why I'm asking. You mentioned that TikTok was one of the fastest growing platforms ever in terms of, the amount of user base, the growth of user base. Does anyone know what the fastest growing platform ever is? Facebook, no. Facebook was pretty darn quick. Instagram was quicker. TikTok was quicker. We're seeing this curve, this hockey stick curve of every time there's a new one. No, it's not YouTube, it's newer. Threads, it's its own platform. Not necessarily tied to social media per se, but it's ChatGPT. And so
yeah, that makes sense.
Was the quickest to, I believe, I forget the numbers, but anyways, when they chart the growth of user base, first to hit 200 million or whatever the number was, it was ChatGPT by a long shot. So no, ChatGPT is not a social platform, but for those marketers that are using social platforms, ChatGPT is a wonderful tool to help to brainstorm content and copyright and all of that. And we do tie that into our training academy as well. ChatGPT is one of the topics that we cover in our curriculum, and we immediately tie it back to how do you use it when it comes to, brainstorming, creating content and whatnot. So just wanted to share that little snippet there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll actually talk a little bit about using ChatGPT in particular to generate scripts and brainstorming activities and things like that for your TikToks as well. But really building on that as well, and how has short form video, TikTok in particular, created a very significant social impact globally. I mean, starting with Vine, we have seen a very significant impact on pop culture and how information is spread and how we communicate with each other through memes and through these really quotable kind of in little snippets and sound bites, right? And it's not a line from a movie necessarily anymore. It's a quote from a TikTok trend or a Vine that we saw, right? And it gives almost like this global inside joke, which is kind of a fun thing to be a part of. But that's one of the huge social impacts that it's had. One thing that's very fascinating to me is how new language and slang jargon evolution has happened with TikTok in particular. As somebody, actually, I have a history degree and an English literature degree. So I've studied a lot of language patterns from Old English all the way through to today, and seeing the impact that social trends like TikTok have had on language is exponential. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, anytime something new comes out, there's language that surrounds it. But the way that TikTok has cemented itself in our vernacular is so interesting to watch and see. And it's become a really huge part of how young people, how middle-aged people, how everyone really communicates within their own communities. So it's really interesting to see that. But the other thing is how it has an impact, and this is really getting to the point of what we're talking about today, small businesses and artisans, craftspeople, musicians, people who have, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and the impact that it's had on their ability to actually share their information at a much larger scale. Being able to connect with so many more people, not just within their own geographic communities, but on a much larger scale, is not something. Yes, it's come from a lot of the digital marketing landscape through email marketing, through Facebook and Google Ads. But again, that connection that we build through short form video platforms like TikTok, it's completely different to building that network than what so many people have had before. And a lot of it has to do with, again, being that genuine and authentic marketer and sharing why you do what you do and bringing it, again, back to the foundations of brand and your purpose and your substance and who you are fundamentally as a brand, and sharing that on a social platform like TikTok has made a significant impact on how people are able to share their ideas. And really fascinatingly, actually, there's been a very strong correlation between virality on TikTok and the amount of streams that somebody gets on Spotify. So like talking about new artists. And a lot of record labels will often say, if you can reach X amount of streams on TikTok, then we'll start to put your music on other platforms. But it's become almost like this gateway threshold, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really about the who, what, where, when, why, and social impact of TikTok on business, on small businesses and entrepreneurs, and how it's evolved throughout the years, and how we will see it to continue evolving. So let's chat a little bit about the algorithm and what fundamentals of TikTok itself. So there's really 3 areas of the TikTok feed, which is a little different than what we see on other platforms. So we have the For You page, which is the public content. This is something that you would kind of see similarly to like your Instagram Discover page, where it's just public content that might relate back to you based on your interactions with likes and comments and your content niches. You have your following. So this is more similar to like an Instagram page where the people that you follow, that's the content that you're going to see. And then your friends, which is kind of like a private Facebook page type of idea where it's the people that you mutually follow and they follow you back. So this is where that content would show up. But fundamentally, we're looking mostly at this For You page, right? Because this is where we get the most traction from. And it comes down really to a few core things when we're looking at the algorithm and how it's influenced. One is the engagement, right? So this is how much engagement is on your video as well. So things like your likes, comments, shares, saves. The more engagement you get, the wider the audience it's going to have, right? That's just kind of fundamental. TikTok is like any other business. It wants you to use its platform. And if people are engaging with your content at a higher scale, it's going to encourage more people to be on its app, right? So that's just kind of the cycle that it goes on. But then we get into some really interesting things called content niches or community talks. That's what TikTok itself has labeled it. And I don't know if any of you have seen things like hashtags like book talk or cleaning talk or knitting talk. These are community-based content chapters, really, is what it is. And TikTok has done a really good job at building that up because it came from the TikTok community itself. It didn't come from the platform, it came from the users, right? And so it's really interesting to see how they've fostered that as they saw how people were using it. And so when we're talking about algorithm influence and looking at how you can build a little bit more traction on the platform, leaning into your own content niche and understanding kind of which community talk you should be a part of, understanding that and being a part of that community and your content niche is really significant on that impact and being able to have a relationship with the other people in that group, right? Then of course the other thing is audience preferences, right? The people that you are trying to target, are they liking similar content? Are they commenting on content with the same hashtags? Are they following people within your audience? Those kinds of things. TikTok has one of the most hyper-focused algorithms, like I had mentioned before, but a lot of that actually has to do with user feedback. If you've ever been scrolling, you might come across a video where you swipe up and it says more content like this ? And it gives you a few options, and that's user-based feedback, right? To be able to curate your own For You page, your own algorithm to fit within what you want, right? To see the content that you actually want to. So a lot of it, yes, has to do with understanding the user habits, but a lot of it is actually just feedback from users and doing user surveys and things like that, which is not something that a lot of other platforms do. Yeah, any questions or comments about how algorithm on TikTok works or anything like that? It is because it is one of the newer platforms, we don't have a lot of studied data, the scientific data on how it works and what, the number of hashtags that are best for TikTok and those kinds of things. But it is really interesting to see how that all comes together.
I'll just flag one comment, and I'm sure we'll expand on this a bit as well, but in the content niches. So it's kind of this idea as a business that's on TikTok, and this would be the same for any other platform. What is the content that you're going to be posting? Do they fit into categories? Is there themes? Sometimes we call these content pillars. And if you follow accounts that are doing a really good job of this, it's usually less is more. They have a few themes that they return back to, and those content themes or categories, the stuff they're posting about generally has a goal sitting behind that, and there's something that's informing that. So I just want to tie this back a little bit to when we work with businesses and we are doing the brand strategy. One of the things that we pull up in brand strategy is this exercise called brand archetype, where we help your business to ultimately develop a character type, and to the extent that you go through that then can significantly inform what your content strategy will look like, because it follows right from, well, our brand archetype is that of the jester or the fool, so therefore our content will be comical and a little bit immature and a little bit goofy and whatnot, and that might be completely different than so for example, if 910 were to be on TikTok, we would likely consider the archetype of the sage. And so, and then we'd have to ask ourselves, is the sage type character type, is that a good fit for TikTok? And then, again, really evaluating if that would be a good fit. And then, even just saying that out loud, I'm not sure if that would be a really good fit for the type of content you typically see in the algorithm. So we'd have to really consider what would our content strategy be. So I just wanted to tie that back to brand strategy. It's whenever a client will ask us a question about, should I be on TikTok or Pinterest or LinkedIn or whatever, it's difficult to answer that question and give them a really solid answer in terms of whether or not that's going to move the needle for them, unless we really understand their brand strategy, who their target audience is, all of that. So anyways, back to you, Megan. I just wanted to tie it back to brand, as I like to do.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, because that really just ties in what I was going to talk about next as well. Is
Perfect.
You can't decide whether or not TikTok is the best platform for you if you don't know who you are, right? If you don't know who you're trying to talk to. If all of your competitors are on TikTok and doing really well on TikTok, that might be a space that is either oversaturated and you want to differentiate yourself, or maybe that's a space that you want to claim in order to be part of that community talk, right? So there's so many different conversations to have regarding whether or not it's the best fit for you, that it's not a blanket yes or no answer. There's so many different factors, right? From we want to focus on our Facebook and Instagram audiences first because we just don't have the resources to allocate to building a TikTok, versus, you know what, our brand archetype is really funny, goofy, fun, right? Duolingo is actually such a great example of that. If you go on to TikTok and look up Duolingo, they have such a great brand presence on there, but it fits within all of the other things, right? It fits within who they are as a brand, versus, you know, if you had a completely different brand type, it may not be the best fit based on who you're trying to target, right? One of the common themes when talking about TikTok is that it's not a platform for serious businesses per se. Now, that has been a very common thing where you get virality from lightness, from kind of funny, fun type of content, but it's not necessarily, it's not conducive to serious content, I guess I should say, where a lot of educational content and a lot of very big conversations happen through the platform. So it's not necessarily that it's just for fun and light and fluffy content, but that typically tends to be where you see a lot of virality. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I'll just give an example. So I'm on TikTok personally. I don't post, but I sure like the feed and I get sucked into it. And so I see that some of the content that's targeted towards me, I'll give one example, Trainual. Trainual is a software for businesses to help them to create training documents and standard operating procedures. It's a software that's very sophisticated. It's for businesses or B2B. They're selling to other businesses. And that's content that I see in my feed, both on Instagram and on TikTok. And what they've done is they've, in those two platforms, they basically do meme marketing. And so the last, 3 weeks have really been meme marketing related to the Olympics. And, there's a lot of times it's like, there's a meme of two ridiculous people, maybe from the Olympics, and one is an employee that has gone through proper training with standard operating procedures, and then the other one that it hasn't had a proper onboarding, and it's just like the juxtaposition between those two ridiculous scenes. And they're making the point that, for training, you should embrace this software and we're going to help you not look like this meme. And it's really, really funny stuff, but much of their other marketing is very different as well. So there certainly is opportunities for businesses to adapt their content strategy for that specific platform, even for business to business type instances like this SaaS or software as a service type company. So I wanted to give that example.
100%. And one of my favorite examples of TikTok being beneficial, not just for the fluffy type content, there is a small business appliance business out of Ontario, and they were very, very, again, very small local business, and their content niche was education, right? How do you troubleshoot your own appliances? How do you fix your washer? Those kinds of things before calling a tech in order to kind of understand a little bit more about their appliances. And they went from very small local to an international business where they were able to facilitate dropshipping partnerships around the world, which is really amazing and wonderful for them, right? So that it's not just about the kind of sassy, goofy meme content. It can also be a little bit more serious educational as well, and that can do really good things for your business too. So when it comes to what kind of content you should be creating, there's a few ways to brainstorm and produce content and kind of just help you streamline your content generation process. I know personally, sometimes it can get really challenging to come up with ideas. Sometimes you are in a creative slump and it can be draining to try and come up with ideas. And this is where tools around using all of the tools that you have available to you are really important. So one, again, using AI for brainstorming and even script writing as well, saying, hey, ChatGPT, this is my audience. I'm looking for ideas to do a video series on TikTok. I want my focuses to be XYZ topics. Do you have any ideas for a video series? This is the tone of voice that I want to have. And it will give you a lot of ideas, and some of them are probably going to be pretty good, and some of them are probably not going to be what you're looking for, but that's part of the process of brainstorming, then going back and saying, hey, ChatGPT, I really liked ideas 1, 3, and 5. Can you come up with a few more on that same topic vein? And then going into that and saying, great, now can we write some scripts for these videos? And then of course, wanting to change that to fit within your own voice a little bit better and how you would interact, again, coming back to that authentic, genuine content. But it can really help out when we're sitting in these creative slumps. And that's not just for TikTok, that's effective for all content niches, content platforms around. But then again, going into the platform itself and looking at, okay, what is my niche? And those content pillars that Ryan was talking about, and how to draw out ideas from those pillars and those content niches that we're talking about. How, okay, I'm going to go on and I want to be part of the bead making TikTok. That's my thing. I do beading, and so I want to learn what's on the platform for that type of content, and going through and seeing ideas and different educational tips and different fun tips and how the history of beading and how it works and those kinds of things. So it's really about kind of just seeing what other people are doing and participating in that community, right? Because that's what it is. And then of course, repurposing content. There's nothing wrong with taking a longer piece of content that you've put on your YouTube and breaking it up into smaller sound bites, right? It is very common for any and all marketers to do, to be able to reuse ideas and refresh them, give them a facelift and come up with new ideas, and maybe something about this process has changed. And so it makes it a little bit easier for you to generate content when it's not all from scratch 100% of the time.
Yeah, worth flagging here, in one of our previous sessions, we did a webinar on email marketing. And when we're working with our clients, we help them to understand that when you're creating longer form content, like a blog or email marketing, and actually if you're blogging, you're already creating the long form content, you're probably a good fit for email marketing or vice versa. But then that long form content can and should be chunked down into one blog, might turn into 5 or 6 social media posts, which might be chunked into 10 different creative ideas on Instagram. So when you're planning and mapping this all out, it's really easy to take that content and create a bunch of stuff if you're intentional about it. But if you just wake up and you're like, crap, it's Wednesday and I haven't posted anything yet, and you just kind of shoot from the hip, you're going to be less strategic, and you're not going to probably have that disciplined, intentional content creation. So a lot of our content calendars focus on that as well. So really good points there, Megan.
Yeah. And building off of that as well, the strategy side of things, how does it all come together, right? How am I supposed to take different pieces of content from different places and turn it into something real, right? And so we look at content generation and kind of where to put our focus and how to streamline it all, connect it all together through this hub and spoke model is kind of where we look at it, right? This rented versus owned. When you own a piece of property, that is yours. You are responsible for fixing it up. You are responsible for making sure that it is safe and secure and everything that you want it to be. That being said, you can also get really creative with it. You can paint the walls, you can do a mural, you can install a garden, you can change the fence, right? That is completely customizable to you, right? Versus when you're renting, there are a lot of restrictions put in place, and it can be a really beneficial approach for a lot of people. And when you're saving up to buy a home, but rented, you do have restrictions and you have to play by the landlord's rules. And so when we're looking at our hub and spoke model in digital marketing, a lot of that is very similar, where you own your website, right? That's yours. You can change the look, the feel, the branding, you can change the language on it. But all of your other platforms, right? Your Google My Business, your TikTok, your YouTube, all of your social platforms, and there's many, many more than what we have here. Those are rented, right? You can't change the TikTok branding. You can't establish yourself intentionally. Well, I mean, you can, but it's a lot more difficult to establish yourself in the algorithm, right? You can't, you have to play by their rules. You might end up with an ad that gets rejected on Facebook, right? So when we're looking at this, we want people to come into the center of our hub, right? We want to bring people from our Instagram, from our TikTok, from our LinkedIn back to our website. So when we're looking at how to connect it all together, this is one of the ways that we look at it, right? Where, okay, so I want to bring people onto my website. What's my next action? How do I want to keep them in my ecosystem? I go from an ad on Facebook to the landing page on my website. Now I want them to fill out a form so that I can bring them into my email marketing cycle, right? So that's how we start to look at how everything is connected. We want to bring them into the center of our hub and into our ecosystem that way. So when we're looking at playing by their rules so that we can do that, is one, using the apps. These are all businesses. These all make money by people using the platform. So use the platform, right? It is an I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine type of relationship, right? Where it's very mutually beneficial. I put content on the app that people like, you push my content to more people so that I can bring them back onto my website, right? So it very much is about placating what the apps want. And again, they are making money. So when we're using the apps, a lot of the things we have to think about are trends, right? And a lot of the pushback that I see from people wanting to get onto TikTok is, well, I don't want to just participate in trends. And unfortunately, that is one of the biggest ways that you can indicate that you are participating in the community, that you actively want to be involved. And it's a little bit of that, again, I want to be part of this so that you can then push your content out to more people, right? And there's a few different ways that you can do that. It's not just the TikTok dances, right? It's not just the little dance trends that you see. A lot of it actually has to do with the sounds that you use. So the actual sound that's attached to your video, how many people are using that can be really impactful on who sees your stuff and who and how many people it gets shown to. The filters is another one. So Ryan had mentioned the filters earlier and how powerful our phones are for being able to use those types of things. And those also have implications on how much your content gets spread to other people with filters that are trending. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Well, Megan, I just wanted to, and I described this a little bit in the chat, just sort of if you reduce this down to really simplifying what we're talking in this hub and spoke model, we're recognizing that at the spokes these are your touch points that are reaching out into the web, and it might be on Instagram or TikTok or Google My Business or whatever, these other online platforms. We're recognizing that this is where you can connect and reach more people. Then, dependent on the platform you're on, you're going to follow the best practice, try to do the things that are engaging, try to reach to and engage or encourage those people you've connected with to drive them usually to your hub, where you have your offer, where you have your content, where you have your e-commerce, etc., where you can control your message. As Megan said, your website is your own platform where you take control of your experience with the customer, but we're recognizing you're going to probably see the audience where you're going to reach all these people are on these rented platforms at the nodes.
Yeah, exactly. One of the last kind of biggest pieces here to playing by their rules is engaging with your audience as well, right? Again, it is a community, it is a social platform, and one of the biggest favors you can do as well is jumping into the comments and responding to people and having that active conversation, right?
Megan, just sorry to interrupt you there. I just wanted to time check. We have about 15 minutes, and in fact, one of the participants just asked that question as well. We do have a special offer at the tail end of this, so just stick around if you can. And there's a special offer related to our training academy for Business Link webinar attendees specifically.
Yeah, so this is the last kind of big chunk of information that I want to get through, and then we'll be able to dive on into that as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Ryan. One of the scariest things that people encounter is how to video edit, because it can seem very, very technical. And there are a lot of very technical things about it too, especially if we're looking at some of the advanced tools, right? But there's a lot of really easy ways to get around that and to go into more user-friendly areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different types of video editing and some of the pros and cons of them. So the in-app editing, it's very easy to use. They have really user-friendly features, and a lot of features as well. You'll be able to do most of what you want to do on the apps themselves. And it's really easy to actually participate in the trends, like using the sound and the filters and things like that as well. Some of the cons, though, is that most of the editing tools, you're not going to be able to give branded content, right? You're not going to be able to use your brand colors unless you happen to have a very common hex code color in your brand, right? So it can be a little bit limiting on what you can actually do that way. Now, when we get into third-party mobile apps, there is quite a bit more functionality. You typically will see a lot of direct integration with the platforms themselves. CapCut is probably one of the most common, but this one here, this little icon is called InShot, and it works very well with Instagram. But yeah, typically they will integrate very, very well, and they are just as easy to use as the apps themselves. Unfortunately, it's still mobile editing. It's very challenging to get specific on a screen that's tiny, and using your fingers to move things around, and it can be a little challenging that way. It can be a little bit overwhelming to learn these as well. If we look at third-party non-mobile, so we get off of your phones, there are a lot of options there as well. Primarily, some of the easiest ones that you're going to see are Canva and Adobe Express. Adobe Express is Adobe's version of Canva, and it's still pretty new and difficult to use, but it has a lot of the same functionality. I like to promote Canva because it is so easy to use and it has so many different features. You are able to access your brand kits. You have more functionality than what you do in app. It's a lot easier to edit stuff on a desktop than it is on mobile, just period. It is. And Canva actually also posts directly to a lot of social apps, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of them. So it's really easy to streamline that process as well. Some of the cons, unfortunately, you will be losing some of the benefits of the app editing, where you're able to participate in trends a little bit easier, those kinds of things. And it can have so many features that it can be a little bit overwhelming as well. So there are some cons to using these platforms, but overall, my personal choice is using Canva over any of the others that we're talking about here today, just because you can do pretty much anything that you want to do, and it's fairly easy and reasonable to use. And it, while it does come with some cons, there are ways to get around those, right? So if we're talking about using a trending sound, I can download the video from Canva, upload it into Instagram, and then add the sound afterwards. So now I'm kind of just negating that issue. It becomes a non-issue at that point.
I just posted 2 links to our Business Link webinar, Canva Part 1 and Canva Part 2. Earlier, I posted a link to our branding, but they're all tied together because when we do a branding and a visual identity, the last step we do is to deconstruct it all and put all of those branding assets into Canva in what's called a Canva brand kit. So really, really powerful tool. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adobe Express does have brand kit capability. However, it does not work nearly as well as Canva's. I will say that, just from experience. And then, of course, we have advanced tools. They are by far the best for editing longer videos like YouTube. Videos, you have a lot of really custom features, and pretty much anything you want to do, you can do in these apps, in these programs. That being said, it can be significantly more expensive. Adobe has quite expensive subscriptions. Again, a lot of benefits, but it takes so much longer to learn because they are so much more advanced. So these two here are Premiere Pro and Adobe Rush. Adobe Rush is kind of like the beginner version of Premiere Pro, and then the Adobe Express is like the intro to all of them. So these are really excellent if you're wanting to get into high level and want to learn a lot more about them. And if you want really about any of these platforms here, from the apps themselves to some of these third party like CapCut and InShot, to Canva and Adobe. There are so many tutorials on YouTube. I can't even give you any one that's out there because there's so many. So if you do want to learn anything at all, go to YouTube and just search it up because there will be something there for you. It's one of the most saturated content areas on YouTube. Now, I do want to say here as well, there is a myth that you need really expensive tech content to be successful in video marketing. That is not true. That is not true at all. Really, all you need is something that's good, like the end result to be decent quality in sound and video. Most of you, if not all of you, will have an HD camera on the back of your phone. That is so beneficial. Most of you will also get good quality sound from the mic on your phone. There is not a huge need to invest in really expensive camera equipment, sound equipment, lighting, unless you are really getting into a lot of the video production. There is a difference between your high production value and your high production quality, right? Quality is the end result. I can post a video that sounds good, looks good for $0 investment dollars in equipment versus a high production value, which is all of that expensive stuff that comes along with it, hiring a videographer, editor, those kinds of things, right? So there is a big difference between those two. And actually, typically what we see is the high quality over the high value tends to get more traction because it's more authentic. The two recommended investments that I do have is a ring light. Generally, when we are filming videos, we want to have nice, soft, diffused lighting. So if you can have access to a window, that is the best because it's natural light. But if you don't always have access to that, a ring light is a good thing to look into. And it really does not have to be expensive. I think the one I have is like 25 bucks on Amazon, and it works great for what I need it to. The other thing is if you are going to be doing a lot of video, getting a lapel mic can be really, really helpful. You don't have to get a really expensive one. You can get mid-range from $50 to $100 and they will work just great. The reason that I say that is because when we're filming videos, especially with two parties, the volume difference between the person behind the camera and the person in front of the camera can be quite significant, and that can be a challenge in editing. So if you're doing a lot of video, that would be one of the biggest investments, but you don't need all of the extras, the stabilizers and the podcast mics and things like that, unless that's going to become a big stream of income for you.
Just sorry to interrupt you either. I'm just spotting the time, and I'm sure some people are going to have to jump off right away. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just going to wrap up here. The key takeaways from today, really, TikTok is the buzzword. Short form video is much, much larger than that. And most, if not all, of the content that we covered today applies to all of the different platforms. Again, it's meant to be fun. Have fun with it. Don't kill yourself trying to create the best TikTok ever. Have fun. The content you produce should reflect your brand and its personality. If you are not a fun, goofy brand, don't create fun, goofy content. Create more serious educational content. That's great. It should reflect you and your brand and its personality. And then again, choose the editor that works for you. Canva works really great for me. It may not work great for you. You might really enjoy the TikTok editor, and that's totally your choice. So that is everything that I have content-wise. Just a quick little note of things that are upcoming. Next month, we will be chatting about data and web analytics. We'll be diving into some of the marketing analytics and a little bit about what that looks like. And then we'll do a couple repeat sessions. These are some of the sessions that we did first. So brand strategy, what we were talking about earlier, this is a really good one, and we'll be doing that again in October. And then ChatGPT. So this is your AI-powered intern, right? So how to use it effectively. We'll be chatting about that in November. All right. So all of this really stems from our philosophies in learning, right? And where a lot of this, we get a lot of learning from our books, right? From the YouTube videos, from the textbooks that we're reading. But a lot of it, actually, most of it, 90% of it, comes from social learning. So what we're doing here today, the interaction, the comments that are chiming in the chat there. But then 70% comes from our experiential learning, practicing, right? I can tell you what to do until, you know, I'm blue in the face, but it's not going to make a difference until you actually go in there and practice it for yourself and see how it works for you. So that's our approach to learning in general. So when we're looking at the 910 Training Academy, we do have the traditional curriculum, which is licensed through the Digital Marketing Institute. Previously, this has qualified for the Canada Alberta Job Grant that is on pause at the moment. So we don't have any subsidies, which is why we're kind of going hard on the discounts for Business Link. All of you, right? All of you that have attended today. So we have some shorter courses that allow you to upskill in particular niche areas, and then some longer professional. So this is the course that Ryan was mentioning at the beginning, the Certified Digital Marketing Professional. That's the accreditation that I have, and it actually also allows you to get accreditation from the American Marketing Association, which is the leading governing body of marketing in North America. And then we have the social and the experiential learning side of things, which is the community, where we have live classes just like today, where we can interact and ask questions, and then go away and practice and bring our practice back to class and have conversations about it and give each other feedback. And it's a really excellent opportunity for your collaboration, for building your network, and getting a lot of coaching that way. So this is our offer here is the first 2 months in the training community. So this part of it for free. So that's a $350 value, and then continuing to learn at that discounted rate for as long as you want. And then again, that discount on the course costs. So if you go over here to the Business Link community page, you will be able to check that out and fill out the form there, and we'll be able to get you started. So sorry for kind of rushing through that, but yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I dropped the link into the chat. You can also scan that QR code on screen. And just something to think about, if you're if you work at an organization and maybe you're an employer, or an employer, that's right, you're going to really want to identify which of your team members has the time that you could allocate in their job role where they would, you know, go through this training program, take the time to learn, but that same amount of time should be kept sacred so that once they graduate and get the certificate, they can use that time to then implement the strategies for the business. And then if you're an employee and you're really wanting to, you know, take this training on, bring this information to the decision maker, to the manager. And then, you know, at that point, Megan or I are happy to jump on a call and see if it's a good fit. Are you looking for the 6-month professional certification, or maybe you want to dip your toe with one of the short courses on email marketing or AI marketing or social media, or whatever it is. So with that, Megan, thank you for bringing us into really short form video. TikTok was maybe just the one that was top of mind. And with that, Matt, back over to you. And again, always thanks to Business Link and the crew and all of the hidden people behind in the trenches right now making this happen.
Yeah, huge thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan and Ryan. That's yeah, I felt like we learned lots, and I hope everyone spends their time kind of investing in that. I know I'm going to watch lots of TikTok at lunchtime here. That's my I was just talking with Julian, who's here with me. He does the kind of back end and technical, and we're probably about 20 years apart in age. And we're just kind of comparing how different our feeds are and things. Like mine's all pictures of people like pruning their trees or painting the side of their house, and his definitely isn't that.
Lots of gardens and stuff. Same.
Yeah, people mowing their lawn. Like literally, that's what I can watch videos of this lunchtime if I want to, or packing their lunch. But yeah, no, that is awesome. Thank you so much. So we look forward to our next webinar next month. Make sure you get on and get signed up there. It'll be wonderful to welcome Ryan, Megan again, and thank you everyone for attending. It's been full of wisdom. So thank you so much. Thanks, Sam. Bye bye.
Fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.